Welcome back to CryptoZonZ, peer-to-peer financial empowerment. Hashtag love all, serve others. How to Speak Bitcoin, episode 3, inflation. In this video, the speaking points we'll discuss are the word inflation, Keynesian economics, Austrian economics, and we'll use such words like manipulation and corruption and things of that nature. But the programmatic design of Bitcoin is such that it has actually a decreasing rate of inflation. Right now it's at 1.8% per annum. And in describing why that is such an important feature of Bitcoin, it's practically as important as the feature that I discussed in my last video when I was talking about digital ledger technology, or DLT. In my next video, I will leave a link in the show notes, and you can click on the playlist at CryptoZonZ YouTube, which is entitled How to Speak Bitcoin. But my next video, we're going to go into Bitcoin personalities, and it might even be 2 videos. We'll see how that takes place. But I'm going to mention at least 10 or 12 very important personalities in Bitcoin. But getting back to inflation, what is inflation? I looked up the definition in Webster, and during this video, I'm gonna, I think, get a little bit animated because I just know what I'm going to talk about and how I'm going to talk about it. But the reason why I know I'm going to get a little bit animated, I talked to a very well-to-do individual yesterday. I've been acquainted with him for several years. He's having no problem financially and economically, but I know that people don't invest in things that they don't know about. And this isn't to say that this individual doesn't know anything by no means. He's a very well accomplished, very talented individual, very successful. And in what we find out or what we know about, those are the things that we invest in. If we don't know about things we don't, I mean, it's just natural, makes common sense. But most people in the world don't know about Bitcoin and crypto and peer-to-peer FinTech. I know about what that is. I research it. I've just gone deep into researching it since 2015. I do know what it's about to a large degree. I'm by no means an expert, but I do know about inflation. I know about the history of the American economy. I mean, the global economy going back 3 or 4 centuries, actually. I've researched that very specifically. I've researched world reserve currencies and the evolution of them. I know about something that's called Keynesian economics a little bit. I know a little bit about the opposing economic school of thought known as Austrian economics. I know about the derivatives market, M1, M2, the central bank design of the global economy. I know about fractional reserve banking economy. I know about stocks and bonds and S&P 500, CME, futures trading. I know a little bit about a lot of things. That's what my forte is, and what I try to present is a macro view of things. But I know that, simply put, inflation is not naturally occurring. It doesn't have to occur. And when I was discussing what happened with this individual I alluded to in the beginning of this video, the reason why we got talking on this economic and financial topic was because I hooked him up with one of my videos. And first thing he said was, or one of the first things he said to me is, you come across a little bit like it's corrupt, the present system. And I said, well, it absolutely is. And he's like, well, it was amazing. The thing that he said was, well, how could it be if it's been working? And it was a very, very good point coming from his stance, or from his perspective. His perspective was one which does not know about an alternative economy. And that's exactly what Bitcoin represents. It's an economy that is very amenable to an Austrian economy. If you want to Google those words, inflation and Austrian economics and Keynesian. Keynesian is spelled, I believe it's Keynsian. Keynesian, N-E-S-I-A-N. But what we've been living is basically a Keynesian economic modus operandi, where there's a central control of money printing and the rules and the laws even, and the controls of a manipulation of the interest rate as a way to accomplish certain predetermined means, predetermined goals. But inflation is not something that is necessary. And there was another individual who, well, actually it was in an article that I read just today where an economist was saying that inflation is actually, when there is a rate of inflation that's going up, it's actually the sign of a healthy economy. I'm sorry, you just can't make this stuff up, but this is based from a perspective that makes sense for him to articulate that. It makes sense for him to say such things within a Keynesian economic perspective or viewpoint. It does, that's the way that a Keynesian economy works. It has a central control of authority which oversees or manipulates the price of money, which is the interest rate, and the money supply. And what we're seeing in today's economy, and one reason why we're talking about this, is to help you to understand what people are talking about with this massive historic rate of money printing right now and the furtherance of the innovation of Bitcoin and cryptos. People are talking about it as an option, much like they would talk about the option of whether to invest in mutual funds or bonds. So at the water cooler, there's just a lot of ignorance as far as what actually Bitcoin is and cryptocurrencies are. And so as far as inflation and there being really not the necessity for that within an opposing or a different economy, here's what Webster says. What inflation is a persistent substantial rise in prices due to an increase in the volume of money, resulting in the loss of value of currency, or in my parenthesis, a rise in prices. A persistent substantial rise in prices due to an increase in the volume of money, resulting in the loss of value of currency. Now that's really just nailing it. And the short answer to what is going on with today's economy with all this money printing, with such a great influx of the volume of money, once that money begins to actually get into the economy, people are hoarding money. The U.S. Citizens are hoarding money in April and May at record rates. But once that money, we're beginning to see it being spent and being churned or being spent into the economy, or there being some velocity of that money, then we're going to be seeing some inflation. Right now we're seeing I read a report by the U.S. labor industry that during June, prices went up at 0.8% for groceries. So that's a little bit less than 1%. But if that's an annual rate of about 10%, about 11%, 80, 90, yeah, about 10% per year for groceries. Now that differs depending on what region, but it's the highest rate of increase in like 9 years for grocery prices. And as far as Bitcoin is concerned, it's just not necessary. It's not naturally occurring. Where it occurs is where there's this manipulation. As a matter of fact, in this same article that I was reading, that it was statistics put out by the American government, $20 in groceries, or $20 in 1913 is the equivalent of $534 today. That is what inflation looks like over time. And when we think of, inflation rate at a 2 or 3% goal, that is what the central bank tries to get to. Well, we don't notice it very much. It just really creeps up on us. But that is a 2,561% in rate of inflation over that period. It is, it's 25.6x. $20 times 25.6 is roughly $534. Do the math. So it's something that seems to be, oh, it's something that we can deal with, but yeah, it's completely unnecessary. And what would happen in a non-inflationary environment, it isn't so much that when you think it through, if there's no inflation, let's imagine it's still dollars, not bitcoins, but let's imagine that there's the rate of production is kept constant. I mean, when I was a kid shoveling walks and mowing lawns, I'd take my George Washingtons to the bank, and occasionally I'd get a Lincoln and a Hamilton. I'd go down there and hand it over, and in my mind I thought that, wow, that's all that the world that existed in the world. But that's just M1. And M2, which is like very liquid money, CDs, money in the bank, other forms of liquid, pretty liquid assets that you can turn into dollars very quickly. That's, some people think that's, well, they estimate it's between 80 and $100 trillion in the globe. Actually, in greenbacks, the US dollar, actually pre-crisis, there's only about, I think about $1.3 trillion, mostly in $100 bills around the world. And in America itself, there's only $560 billion worth of greenbacks. And there was more greenbacks outside of the US than were inside of the US. But the fact of the matter is, most money that we think of money, spendable money, is probably 99% of it or 98% of it is just in digits, in integers printed on a database in a bank. If you go to a bank, say, hey, I want a $500,000 loan for this house, you sign on it and poof, right there, $500,000 is magically created out of nothing once you sign. So that's a great example of the way that dollars are created out into the market, and an example of pure inflation, monetary inflation that will come to roost eventually. It does take time. So Keynesian economics, that's the way that the present modus operandi is. And an Austrian economic system is one which really is amenable to a free market system. I know I didn't go very far into explaining an Austrian economic system, but it doesn't need to be explained very much. It's really the dynamics of it are really open to the free market. Let the market at large decide where it goes, not a very, very small group of people decide on the monetary policy. And a Austrian economic really, in the end, theoretically, it really, what we find is that it's good for promoting greater quality and more competition. So actually, greater quality at even a lesser price as time goes on. It's just the way that things go. The pressure is to produce, competition, and what competition wins out when there is a greater quality, a better product at the same price, or even for less. So I'm all for that, and that is one I think it's about as an important a dynamic and a feature in Bitcoin as there is with the digital or the distributed ledger technology, where it makes it so that Bitcoin it can't be counterfeited. And it makes it so that all the transactions are transparent to everyone on Earth who can get on the internet. But please feel free to hit that like button and click on the green planet there. I'd appreciate it. Hashtag love all, serve others. Please look forward to the next video that I'll do, that I'll describe important personalities in Bitcoin. I wish you well. I wish you wealth. I wish you health. And until next time, peace.